eyes and experience tell us the Earth is flat and motionless. Everything in the sky revolves around us. But when we cease to believe our own eyes and experience, we have to prostrate ourselves at the feet of these very pseudoscientists who are blinding us, treat them as experts, astronomical priests who have special knowledge only they can access, like the Hubble telescope. So by brainwashing us of something so gigantic and fundamental, it actually makes every other kind of lesser indoctrination a piece of cake. Earth being the flat, fixed center of the universe around which everything in the heavens revolves gives a special importance and significance not only to Earth, but to us humans, the most intelligent among the intelligent designers' designs. By turning Earth into a spinning ball thrown around the sun and shot through infinite space from a godless Big Bang, they turn humanity into a random, meaningless, purposeless accident of a blind, dumb universe. So it's like trauma-based mind control, beating the divinity out of us with their mental manipulations.
Humans, for the most part, don't have a clue. They don't want one or need one either. They're happy. They think they have a good bead on things.
But why the big secret? People are smart. They can handle it.
A person is smart. People are dumb, panicky, dangerous animals, and you know it. 1,500 years ago, everybody knew the Earth was the center of the universe. 500 years ago, everybody knew the Earth was flat. 15 minutes ago, you knew that people were alone on this planet. Imagine what you know tomorrow.
We sit watching our TVs while some local newscaster tells us that today we had 15 homicides and 63 violent crimes, as if that's the way it's supposed to be. We know things are bad, worse than bad. They're crazy. It's like everything everywhere is going crazy, so we don't go out anymore. We sit in the house, and slowly the world we're living in is getting smaller, and all we say is, please, at least leave us alone in our living rooms. Let me have my toaster and my TV and my steel-belted radios, and I won't say anything. Just leave us alone. Well, I'm not going to leave you alone.
In every revolution, there's one man with a vision.
Captain Kirk, I shall consider it.
I've been a participant in some of the most insidious lies and witnessed to deeds that no crazed man could imagine. I spent years watching you from my lofty position to know that you were the one I could trust.
And why did you lie to me?
There still exist some secrets which should remain secret. Truths that people are just not ready to know.
Who are you to decide that?
The world's reaction to such knowledge would be far too dangerous.
Dangerous? You mean in the sense of outrage? Like the reaction to the Kennedy assassination, or MIAs, or radiation experiments on terminal patients. Watergate, Iran-Contra, Roswell, the Tuskegee experiments. Where will it end?
You want answers? I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth! You can't handle the truth! Get out!
Or what? You'll kill me?
Always remember, dissension's the greatest form of patriotism.
The very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society. And we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret societies.
We have before us the opportunity to forge a new world order.
Yes, we can. As you say.
Let us never tolerate outrageous conspiracy theories.
A lie is most convincingly hidden between two truths.
Well, I guess it won't end.
No! I don't have time for this. This is about saving the future of humanity.
We know things are bad, worse than bad. We know the air is unfit to breathe and our food is unfit to eat. I don't want you to protest. I don't want you to write to your congressman because I wouldn't know what to tell you to write. I don't know what to do about the depression and the inflation and the crime in the street. All I know is that first, you've got to get mad.
The line must be drawn here. This far, no farther.
I want you to get up right now. Go to your windows, open them, and stick your head out and yell, I'm a human being. My life has value, and I'm not going to take this anymore.
You shall not pass!
You're listening to the Revolutionary Radio Project with your host, Rob Skiba.
Hello and welcome to the Revolutionary Radio Project. I am your host, Rob Skiba. And tonight I'm going to kind of pick up where we left off a couple weeks ago with the interview that I did with Mark Sargent regarding the issue of the flat earth. Yeah, this thing has been sticking in my brain like a splinter in the mind's eye, a thorn in my brain that I can't get out. And I have become obsessed with it, actually, going through the various arguments on both sides. And I think before we get started with tonight's broadcast, I'm going to play a little bit of an interview that I did on my friend Joe Joseph's show on Truth Frequency Radio Network. His show is called The Freedom Link. And I was interviewed on April 20th by Joe. And here's a little clip from that interview.
Fighting for humanity and against globalism. One mind at a time. It's the Freedom Link with Joe Joseph.
Welcome, everybody, to this edition of the Freedom Link, this 20th of April, 2015. I'm Joe Joseph. Johnny King will be along with us in hour number 2. I want to get right to our guest because it's always good when I can get on Rob Skiba to, talk about anything. When we start getting into the spirituality aspect of things, it's pretty cool. But also a lot of ancient history, things like that. This guy knows his stuff. There's just no... I'm always glad to be able to get him on the broadcast. And a little background on Rob for anybody that doesn't know him. He's a award-winning documentary filmmaker and the best-selling author of several books, including Babylon Rising and the First Shall Be Last, and Archon Invasion, which is what I watched a video presentation he did on that, The Rise and Fall and Return of the Nephilim, and that's what actually got me hooked on a lot of his research. And he brings a very unique perspective to things, both in his work, in his video series, in his written material, and also on Facebook. Very, very unique approach. You'll come to like him as if you follow his stuff. So without further ado, oh, by the way, he's also written a TV series that will hopefully go into production here sometime in the near future. Rob, welcome to the show.
Hey, Joe, thanks for having me.
Oh, man, it's awesome to have you here, dude.
You're talking about Facebook, and I was listening to your intro about globalism. It's taken on a whole new meaning.
What have you done? So I just out of curiosity, because I got to know, man. So here you are. It's right around Easter time. We'll get into that later. And all of a sudden, poof, you're gone. I'm like, what the hell happened? And so you come to find out, you needed to take a breather, take a step back. That's cool. Focus on other things. So then you come back. I guess you're just all fully recharged, ready to go. And
boom!
There you go, man. You hit the most controversial topic, I think, out there in the alternative media right now.
Holy cow, dude. It's crazy because, Christmas was insane. Easter, I knew it was going to be just as insane.
Yeah.
And the reason for that, and I'm sure we'll get into it later in the broadcast, is the difference between our so-called Christianized pagan holidays versus the actual holy days of our God,
right,
as described in the Bible. And so, that stirred up quite a firestorm, as you might imagine. And, it's just at this point, I've got 5,000 quote unquote friends on Facebook, which I didn't know you max out on your personal profile at 5,000. So I can't improve anybody anymore. So what I typically do, because people will say, hey, man, I've been trying to, friend you for a while and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, well, just hang on, man. I'll just post something controversial. I'll lose 3 or 4 and there'll be an opening for you. So sometimes I do it just to create openings. But then, when you have that many people checking out your wall and whatever you have to say, plus there's also a thing you can follow people, I guess. And so apparently I've got about 5,000 followers, and I know I have at least as many trolls.
At least.
Because it's a public, I've made it public. So whether you're a friend or a follower, you can still check it out. And so, I mean, with that many people and that many opinions, it doesn't matter what I say. I could say purple and somebody would scream, "It's blue!"
Yeah, oh, yeah.
And everybody goes psycho, just
it's amazing, man.
It really doesn't matter what you say with that many people, with that many opinions, So it got overwhelming, man. It was, because it's not just what's on the wall. It's the private messaging, it's emails, it's phone calls, and for the most part, I would say it's very positive. I have to put it in perspective. There's a lot of people that may not agree, but they're cordial, and I respect that. I like the debate, I like the discussion.
Most times, I gotta be honest with you though. You do rook them into, you almost bait them into it by presenting sometimes a bit on the fringe arguments, but it's cool. Hey, there's a lot of things out there that are fringe.
Well, in fact, I've been introduced before on radio shows. This is Rob Skiba. He's on the fringe of fringe Christianity. I'm like, man, I'm like on the outer limits, man.
But I think people have a preconceived notion of Christian, and so they think that you're just going to be like, oh, no, I respect your opinion. Oh, and next thing you know, it's like, wham. Pow, pow.
Well, no, and I'll say it here on your show.
Yeah.
And just make a confession that I know I have a character flaw I have lots of them. I have lots of character flaws, but one of them is, and this goes back to solutions we come up with as children become problems we deal with as adults. And as a kid, I mean, from 5th grade to high school, I was beat up almost every day. Simply because I was a skinny guy, and the bullies like to pick on either the skinny guys or the fat guys, whatever. But I seem to always have had a bully around me beating me up, literally. And I snapped, man. It was like probably sophomore, junior year, somewhere around there.
You hugged your inner ninja, didn't you?
Yeah, well, it's that the 90-pound weakling that just loses it.
Yeah, I know. It's like your falling down moment.
Yeah, I snapped, and something, it's like the Hulk, you wouldn't like me when I'm angry. Something inside came out that I didn't know was in there. And I ended up putting this guy in a bookshelf and kicking the crap out of him, just kick the snot out of him. And he used to just make me late for class and everything else, not let me get my walker. Anyway, after I beat him up, he never picked on me again. And then, of course, when the rest of the school found out that I beat up the bully, nobody picked on me again.
That's right.
Well, so that was wonderful,
It's one of those life lessons I taught my oldest son early on is, I said, pick out the biggest guy in the room, go up and punch him in the nose. Just go and deck him.
Yeah, you do the alpha dog thing, but
that's it.
So that was great. It solved a problem for me in school, and life was wonderful after that. And it paid off a few times in the Army too. But now I'm not fighting anybody. I don't get into fights with anybody, fist fights. But I find that when it comes to the verbal sparring, that I react more than I respond. And I just want to apologize to everybody listening right now, because I know, honestly, dude, one of the reasons I took a break from Facebook is because I didn't like who I was becoming. When you're getting punched, metaphorically speaking, from so many different angles every day, eventually, it wears on you. And, I was punching back and, getting feisty and nasty and sarcastic. And frankly, I just wasn't like who I was becoming. And so I said, okay, I'm going to take a step back, take a break for a few weeks. I went to visit my family in Florida. Everything's cool. I come back. This was just like 2 weeks ago or something like that. I come back, and Canary Cry Radio, a couple of guys that I know, Gons and Basil, did this show with this guy named Mark Sargent on Flat Earth. And, Basil and Gons are, they're kind of fun-loving, goofy guys, so I figured this is just a joke. What is this, And I was going to do my taxes last week, and I had to drive for an hour and a half to go to meet my accountant. And the show was about that long, so I figured this would be a good listen on the drive. Well, I went into it rolling my eyes, but I came out of it scratching my head going, that's interesting. So
they make a compelling argument.
They really do, man. I'm not going to say I'm fully on board, but what I've decided to do, and this is what what you're referring to at the top of the show with regard to the Facebook page. Okay, somebody created a meme. Yeah, took up a picture of me or whatever.
Oh my God, I couldn't believe that.
They said,
a meme with your face in it. I said, "Oh God, man, I can't believe it."
Comes back, goes away to take a break from Facebook, comes back and is promoting Flat Earth, which is a lie. I'm not promoting Flat Earth. I'm exploring it. There's a big difference. But yeah, man, it was one of those things that stuck in my brain like a thorn, and I couldn't get it out. So I figured I'm going to contact that guy and have him on my show, which, I'm here on Truth Frequency Radio. Also, I did a show with
Wednesday nights.
Wednesday night, did a show with him last Wednesday, and ever since then, man, it's like from the moment I wake up until the moment I go to bed, it's way too late at night. It's all I've been looking at, dude. And all I can tell you is while I still believe in a spherical Earth and there's still problems I have not been able to overcome, it's not as cut and dry as I would have thought a week ago. Put it that way. So
you're being raked over the coals viciously. I noticed. Yeah. And I'll be honest with you. A couple of weeks ago, I raked Mark Sargent and all of them over the coals viciously. And you know what? It was honestly, it was that conditioned response. Now that's not to say that I believe in flat Earth, because I don't. Science to me points to spherical Earth. However, it kind of took me aback because I was kind of like, "Whoa!" I just reacted. How? What? I'm like one of them. No, no,
dude. It's a hive mind. It's what it is.
Yeah,
because we have all been conditioned in school with that globe. I mean, it's right there. It's right there in the corner of the classroom. It's always been there. It's always in front of our face. So what I've decided to do with this whole thing is I'm by no means a champion chess player, but I love the game. I enjoy the game. It's like chess is a debate without words. It's move and counter move as opposed to argument and counter argument. And whenever I play chess, of course, I've got my strategy, I've got my plan and what I'm trying to do in my offensive moves. But at the same time, even before I make that offensive move, I'm trying to see the board from the other guy's perspective.
Yes.
And see what is he trying to do, first of all, to get me?
Right.
Because I don't know what it is. For some reason, and I can play a good game of chess, but I inevitably will lose my queen like early in the game. And it's like that's the most powerful piece on the board. And I lose the queen usually pretty early in the game, and I'll end up, if I win, it's usually with a knight or a bishop or something. So it's frustrated me, but I enjoy the game. So I'm trying to figure out what is that guy seeing? What is his offensive move? Where are the holes in my defense? So that's sort of the approach that I'm trying to take with this flat Earth versus globe model deal.
Well, I've noticed that that's kind of been your approach all along, at least.
Yes.
Since I've known you and your work, it always seems to be that you always got to go outside the box, and in this case, like your biblical research, all your presentations, of course, you mainly reference the Bible, but you talk about the extra biblical texts that are out there as well, provide a lot of insight.
That's what has really tripped me on this flat Earth thing. Okay. Because I'm told to test all things. And for me, test all things means by the scriptures. That's my touchstone. Everything's got to, that's truth above all. So when I went through the scriptures, and I'm still going through the scriptures, dude, it does not fit a globe. And unless you go into the scriptures with a preconceived notion that you're on a globe, then what ends up happening is you're trying to twist and distort and manipulate the scriptures to fit your preconceived ideas. But if you go into the scriptures and say, and do everything you can to pretend, I have never seen a globe, I've never heard about a globe, I know nothing about a globe, I'm just going to read it for what it says.
Right.
If you do that, dude, it is not going to work in favor of a globe. And that's my quandary right now, because I preach, the Bible's the truth and blah, 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 and you got to test everything by the word. And now I'm going, well, I believe in the globe, but everything I'm reading is telling me it's not a globe.
No, I hear you, man. There's some science to it. There's no doubt. There's a lot. We're gonna do a show here, I think in May. You and me and Mark Sargent and Chris Gio, and we're just gonna kind of lay it all out and let people decide for themselves. Me personally, I don't care if it's flat or round or pyramid or anything else. As far as I'm concerned, that's kind of outside of the sphere of influence of mine. However, I will say that perhaps not flat Earth in the sense that people envision it. You know, they have that idea of just this flat rock. Just going through space.
With water flowing out the edges.
I don't think that's the way it is. As a matter of fact, you know, physics, modern, or I should say not physics, but quantum physics has gone now to say, well, you know, the universe is a hologram. I think there's some truth to that.
Yeah, you know, Chuck Missler's done a whole bunch of stuff on that. And if you've never seen the movie, you should check out The 13th Floor.
I did. Oh, wow, that's a freaky movie.
It came out about the same time as The Matrix, but was totally eclipsed by The Matrix. I mean, Matrix, just kind of obliterated the box office. So, hardly anybody's ever heard of it. But I was at a conference where Chuck Missler was talking about the holographic universe, and he was making reference to that movie. I'm like, I've never even heard of that movie. So I went out and found it, and I eventually bought it. And it is an interesting thing, and that's what's really tripping me out too. And Mark Sargent put out these 11 flat Earth clues videos, and unfortunately, he put his first foot out was clue number 1 was movies. And I'm like, dude, it's like your weakest argument, man.
Yeah, that's one you put last.
Yeah, you put it last is an interesting, isn't this interesting, But unfortunately, some people will watch that first, go, why am I even paying attention to this? And then they even get the second ones where you go, the Admiral Byrd stuff, and you're like, okay, that's interesting. And the deeper you go into it, that's where you start, kind of giving the guy at least some attention, But it is true. There's been quite a few movies out there that have been trying to telegraph this particular message. I mean, and Truman Show is the most obvious. But
I mean, others. Let's just say, for example, that it's been a grand deception for a long time, right?
Yeah.
It would have to be thousands upon thousands of years, because look at the Great Pyramid and look at its dimensions and look what it communicates.
I'm glad you said that.
Well,
you
wouldn't know anything about that now, would you?
Not well. I've dabbled in it. Let me put it that way. I've written 3 lengthy blogs on it and produced a video on it recently. But I know that I've barely scratched the surface on this deal. But as I've been taking a contrarian point of view, on my Facebook, it's arguing, looking at all the evidence that the flat earthers are putting forward. And, and I'm trying to argue against my own arguments for the globe. In other words, this is what I believe about the globe. Oh, really, Rob? Why is that? What about this? Well, so I'm playing the contrarian right there. And here I am. I just produced a DVD series. I just spent several $100s on buying stock in this series. Mm-hmm. It's in duplication right now. I should be getting it this week. That very much advocates for a globe. So I'm thinking, okay, great. If I do become a convert, and that's capital IF, if I did become a flat Earth convert, what would I do with all my other material? Now, I'm not afraid to admit I was wrong. I've done it plenty of times, and do revisions if I need to. So I'm thinking through, okay, what all the stuff I learned about the Great Pyramid and all the things that seem to argue in favor of dimensions of the Earth in various ways, how would that apply to the flat Earth model? And I'm finding it actually still works.
Get out of here.
Yeah. For instance, it's not a 4-sided pyramid. It's an 8-sided pyramid.
Right. Because it's actually creased in the middle, right? Is that what you're talking about in the middle of each side? Yeah, I got you.
Right. And in my video and in my teaching series on that, I talk about how the indent of that, it's concave. So the indent of the sides, it matches the curvature of the Earth. Great. But for that to work, you got to turn the pyramid on its side. If it's telegraphing a circle, it still works. And it actually works with the pyramid straight up, the way it is. In other words, the curvature of the circle as opposed to the curvature of the ball.
2-dimensional.
Well, I don't want to say 2-dimensional because I don't believe it's a piece of paper. I think it's more like a fat DVD-ROM or something. I mean, a disc. I mean, honestly, if you look at the true flat Earth model, it really is a square with a circle engraved in it that has depth to it. And the outer edge of it is is Antarctica, with from what Mark Sargent said, a 2-mile high wall.
Which
that's not true as far as I could tell.
No.
As I've researched what he has searched, I found it's 200 and 200 feet. And there are other higher places. I have not yet found a place that's 2 miles high, so I don't know if he's just wrong or if I haven't found what he's talking about yet. But if that's the case, that is the outer edge, which incidentally is the map on the UN flag. By the way, it depicts the flat Earth model.
Uh-huh.
But what's on the outside of the circle? The outside of the circle in that model is the plateau of Antarctica that, if I was to take the biblical descriptions, ends up becoming a square. So you basically have a square block with a circle cut into it that's kind of a shallow bowl, if you will, with some peaks and dips and whatnot. And then you have your four corners, because the Bible goes on and on about four corners. Now everybody says, well, that's the four cardinal points. Really? Well, you're saying that based on your preconceived notion of a globe. What if it's four? What if it's what it says? So I mean, these are the types of arguments I'm going back and forth. Going, okay, do you globalists? Do you have a rock solid argument? And I'm going to argue, no, you don't, because as I've tried to argue against my own arguments, I found that there are lots of holes in them.
I know, and the whole reason why I'm getting into this is because it's so important to look into both sides of an argument. Just it really is. It's critical to do so.
All right, I just wanted to play that to kind of portray what the kind of dialogue I would hope that this subject would stir, and the way it should be conducted. You'll note that well, first of all, both of us, Joe, Joseph, and I, both admitted that we don't believe in the flat Earth. We believe in the globe. However, in the course of the dialogue, we're discussing the pros and cons and, what's the deal with this and what's the deal with that. And we kept it civil. And I wish that could be the case with this discussion, but I found that it is anything but civil. Cognitive dissonance is alive and well in the hive mind. And unfortunately, it doesn't make it easy for anybody to have any meaningful conversation in this regard. And I think that's unfortunate. All right. What I want to do now is go through what I'm calling a mega blog after 2 weeks. And again, I don't consider myself to be an expert in any of this stuff. I'm a neophyte at best. I've only been looking into it for about 2 weeks, obsessively for 2 weeks. It's all I've done from morning till night. But that's hardly enough to claim to be an expert in anything, and I certainly don't claim to be an expert in anything. I'm still a pert. So I decided to really distill all of my thoughts that I've had as a result of the 2 weeks of research into one place. And that became this blog that you see here called the Flat Earth Controversy. So what I'm going to do is just go through this blog here on the radio show. And if you want to follow along, you could go to seedtheseries.com/blog/BibleEarth.html. Again, that's seedtheseries.com/blog/BibleEarth.html. And if you're listening to this live or in the archive, then you can just go ahead and follow along with me. All right, so the full title of this blog is The Flat Earth Controversy, a Biblical Worldview and One Man's Quest for Truth. And that one man, of course, would be me in this case. And as I say here at the top, this page contains the raw, full, unedited essay. I'm going to go through it again, cleaning and chopping it up into sectional, easier to share blogs soon. Basically, what I intend to do, I'm not sure when I'll get to it, but is to separate. I'll keep the full one up for people who like to read about 45, 46 pages worth of content, if you want to do it that way. But sometimes, somebody may I really love this argument right here, but I don't want to share all this other stuff because I think you're crazy. So, then you can just share what Enoch has to say or what the Bible has to say. Or, if you wanted to take these in segments and share them just, exclusively one segment, to say what you may or may not agree with, that would make it easier for you to do so. But for now, these are just basically hyperlinks that take you to anchor points as we get started here. So if you want to just jump around, you can do that. Or if you want to start at the beginning, as we will right now, then you just scroll down. So I am on a quest for truth. It is very easy to mock, ridicule, and dismiss an argument. Taking the time to give a well thought out and carefully reasoned response, however, is another story. Initially, when confronted with the issue of a flat Earth, my knee-jerk response, like that of many others, was to mock, ridicule, and dismiss the whole thing as utterly ludicrous and a total waste of time to even consider. But then I was challenged by several people to prove that it was. I thought it would be quite easy to do so. It turns out I was wrong. I am by no means an expert chess player, but I do enjoy the strategy of the game. When I am playing chess, I not only formulate my offensive plans, but I am simultaneously keeping an eye on my defenses. In order to do that, as I am attempting to make an offensive move, I imagine myself on the other side of the board, trying to see if I have left myself open for my opponent to attack. Are there holes in my plan that he can exploit? When he makes a non-defensive move on his offensive play, what is he thinking? What is his strategy to defeat me? How can I defend against his advances while trying to advance my own offensive strategy at the same time? Thus, I find it helpful to flip the board, so to speak, in my mind. I want to see what he sees. I do this not only with chess, but with lots of things in my life. Yes, I have what I believe to be true and well-informed opinions about lots of things. But if I flipped the board, could I poke holes in my own beliefs? When I took on that particular method of research regarding this subject, I found there are actually a lot of holes in my current belief. I used my Facebook page as my venue to express counter-arguments against myself and many others as I fielded the responses of those who also believe as I do. In short, I took a contrary point of view in order to see if I could force myself to think outside the box in an effort to see if there really are any good arguments on the other side of this issue. As a result, it forced me to look into what flat earthers actually believe, rather than just dismiss them altogether as idiots, like so many of us are all prone to doing. In addition, when I took on the flat earther point of view, I was actually rather shocked at the absolute vitriol, cognitive dissonance, and normalcy bias I encountered by people on, quote, my real side of this issue. It therefore gave me a whole new appreciation for how the hive mind works. And it wasn't pretty. Suddenly I thought, what if I'm wrong about the globe view? Am I prepared to deal with the resulting aftermath of scorn and ridicule that is sure to follow? No one likes to experience such things, but I have a greater need inside of me than that of wanting to be liked and popular with the masses. I have a sincere need to know the truth, no matter where that journey leads me. I have already been blacklisted and labeled a cult-leading heretic and worse because of some of my other views on things that are not in line with the prevailing majority view. Many of you who are reading this already know about all of that. This being the case, do you really think I would take on something else that is sure to draw even more fire my way? That would be utterly insane. So please know that I didn't just jump into this because I like controversy and I'm some sort of glutton for punishment, because that is certainly not the case at all. I'm just being true to my stated quest for truth in all things. Those who say they are on a quest for truth but are either unwilling to take the journey, or when they do and they end up realizing that the newfound truth is against the hive mind mainstream view and are therefore now too timid to admit they found it because of fear of the response they will get, they are posers in my opinion. Plain and simple. You can't claim to be on a quest for truth while refusing to step on the ship that's headed out on that quest. Neither can you claim to, quote, take the Bible literally, end quote, if you refuse to actually do so. With this in mind, I had no choice but to get on that ship and to really search the scriptures for myself, accepting what they actually say, not what I want them to say. The big question I have for myself now is, okay, Rob, are you a poser? This is the beginning of my own journey to answer that question. Perhaps it will be for you as well. Are you on a genuine quest for truth, or are you a poser? As of this writing, I have only been looking into the whole flat Earth versus spherical Earth debate for less than 2 weeks. Therefore, I do not claim to be an expert by any stretch of the imagination. This essay is really more of a brain dump regarding my recent investigations into my own beliefs concerning the nature of our Earth and its place in the whole of biblical creation according to the scriptures. As such, it should be considered nothing more than my current thoughts, which are subject to change the longer I continue on my quest for truth into the subjects covered herein. If you were to have asked me about my thoughts on this subject 2 weeks ago, I would have completely dismissed the whole thing and wondered why this is even being discussed in the 21st century. Like many, I would have said, this was settled a long time ago. Let's get back to the real issues of today. That was until I listened to the following interview with Mark Sargent conducted by my friends at Canary Cry Radio. And on the blog there, you'll see I've embedded the Canary Cry radio show they did called Flat Earth Clues Interview 12. You can watch that whole thing. It's an interesting listen, to say the least. I went into listening to this interview rolling my eyes, but I came out of it scratching my head. At least I was compelled enough to look further. So I did watch all 11 of Mark Sargent's Flat Earth Clues videos on YouTube, and I got a link there. If you've never heard of that, you can click on that. It takes you to a playlist to watch all 11 videos. Now, of those 11 videos, the following are the ones that really caught my attention. Part 2, the bird wall. That one, yeah, mainly because I had already done a lot of research into Admiral Byrd and the various trips, both to the North and South Pole, if we can use that term, South Pole. And I found that particularly interesting in what he had to say in that video, part 2. Part 3, the map makers, I really like that one as well. This image on the still frame there is the azimuthal equidistant map of the Earth, incidentally the same thing that's on the UN flag. Then Flat Earth Clues Part 5, the status quo. Part 8, creative force. Part 10, hiding God. And Part 11, souls in the system. And this one in particular I found really interesting when he got to the part about the astronauts not being willing to put their hand on the Bible. This part's pretty cool.
Of contention. So why not just go through the motions again? It is, after all, just a book, right? People lie under oath all the time. It's called perjury, and every country has an extensive system of laws and punishments to deal with it. These punishments don't seem to stop the people from committing perjury, and you can read about it almost every day. Furthermore, the astronauts were not in court. This was just a room, sometimes their own home. So swearing on the book would, for all intents and purposes, be meaningless. And this sat in the back of my head for years because it didn't make sense. Why would astronauts, trained by a very large military science program, be afraid of just putting their hand on the book and just tell one more lie? Well, for them, it may have been more than just a book. It may have been a symbol of something much bigger. You see, for you, me, and almost everyone else, a holy book is a symbol of faith because the creator or creators have yet to be revealed. But if you knew that the creators were real, then the book becomes something much more tangible, more relevant, more sobering. Or more to the point, the Apollo astronauts would have been let in on the enclosed system during their tenure with NASA, and over the decades, this system created certain truths for these men, one of which is someone could be watching. Now, whether the builders/creators are actually watching every little thing we do can be debated. But if you have proof that they are real, then the thought of your every move being scrutinized is a very real possibility. This is what you and I may suspect, but don't feel. The Apollo pilots, however, are a different story. If they were shown how the world really looked, then their attitude towards the book takes on a whole new meaning. In fact, it didn't have to even be a Bible. It could have been an encyclopedia or a piece of wood, because it was the idea that made them pause. And if you're still not getting it, then I'll ask you directly. If you actually saw some of the creators' handiwork and knew that there was a chance you were being watched, and there was a scorecard involved, would you swear against that and lie about something? Would you roll those dice and take the chance? Or to put it another way, everyone has gotten frustrated about something, then looked up and cursed the sky. Would you still do that if you knew that a creator was up there and possibly listening? That's just one example of how knowledge of the enclosed system changes people. The astronauts didn't want to roll the dice and lie because there was a real fear of retribution. And while they were confident that a bolt of lightning wasn't going to strike them down, they also weren't going to push their luck.
I'll stop it there. The whole thing, especially that last video, clue number 11, after watching all of the other 10, really drove the point home for me. But I really, the part regarding the astronauts in particular caught my attention, because if you've ever seen the video, I think you could go on YouTube and just punch in Astronauts Gone Wild, I believe is the name of it. And it shows this guy who's trying to get the astronauts to just, all they need to do is put their hand on the Bible and swear that they went to the moon. And none of them would do it. In fact, one of them punched him in the face. It's like, really? I mean, okay, if you don't even believe in God, then it's just a book. Why do you care about the Bible? And if you do believe in God, why wouldn't you do it? If you're not lying. If you're telling the truth, why would you not put your hand on the Bible? It doesn't make any sense to me that they would get that belligerent and seemingly fearful of putting their hand on the Bible. But when Mark put forward the idea that, well, maybe somewhere along the lines they found out in no uncertain terms that we are in a terrarium, the creator they found physical, tangible evidence that proves we are in an enclosed system with a creator, then yeah, you're not going to put your hand on the Bible. I believe that there's certainly grace where there's ignorance, where we don't have a clue what we're doing or why we're doing it. Like you've heard me talk about Christmas and Easter and things like that. We do these things thinking that we're honoring God and our Savior, but after you look into it and you realize, no, this is all about Nimrod, well, then you're not ignorant anymore. And at that point, I believe you're held accountable. As soon as you can no longer claim ignorance, well, now you're accountable. And for most of us, other than what you believe in the Bible, we have no physical, absolute, tangible proof, of our creator. We just believe it. I mean, all of creation testifies to his handiwork. I get that. But that's a little different than putting your hand on the edge of the dome and realizing, oh, we're in the Truman Show. And so, it's a theory, but it's the one that made the most sense to me that I've heard so far, that would explain why these guys would be so afraid and so angry and not put their hand on the Bible. So kudos to Mark for putting that together. But the videos that I just highlighted here, those are the ones of the 11. I enjoyed all of them, but those are the ones that had the most impact on me. And I encourage you to check them out too, perhaps even before reading any further on this blog or listening to this radio show. If you're listening to this in the archive, go ahead and hit pause now and go watch all 11 videos before you continue. Of course, those of you who are listening live right now, let's continue. After watching Mark's videos, I began to look into the work of Eric Dubay and Matthew Boylan. These are all people I had never even heard of 2 weeks ago. Eric seems to have the most knowledge of anyone I've listened to so far, and I'd love to get him on the show. And if I can, if anybody knows how to get a hold of him, please let him know that I would like to interview him. Now, Matthew has some good stuff too, but he's kind of out there in the way he presents it. So in some ways, sadly, it's hard to take him seriously. I think he's got some great information, but the way he presents it, it's kind of hard to take serious, I think. And he's a comedian, so maybe that's the point. But anyway, I'm a chew the meat and toss the bones kind of guy. I'll listen to the evidence and research it for myself if it piques my interest enough to do so. And that's exactly what I've been doing. At this point, I'm feeling like my brother Gons from Canary Cry Radio. I'm wanting to go deeper and talk to others who have been researching this stuff for a lot longer than I have. And what I'm talking about there is Gons from Canary Cry Radio. He did sort of a follow-up little 10-minute video, I guess. Is it a 17-minute video, almost 18-minute video, giving sort of his take after the interview that he did with Mark. And you know what? I appreciate his honesty. He's saying, hey, this stuff makes sense to me. And, I'm not going to say I believe in the flat earth, but I am going to say I'm going to keep looking. There's been enough reasonable doubt put into his mind as well as mine and probably yours and maybe others to at least question and continue to question the globe model, if for no other reason than to solidify our own belief in it. So, you can check that video out where Gons expresses his thoughts on the video that he did previously with Mark, the radio show. And last Wednesday, April 15th, 2015, I interviewed Mark Sargent myself. If you haven't heard that one, you can click on that and of course listen to it in the archives of Truth Frequency Radio as well. Since that interview, I have become quite obsessed about this topic. From then until this writing, all I have done is scour the scriptures, surf the internet, and now dive into the books I have just purchased on the subject. As a result, I'm finding that the more I dig into this stuff, the deeper the rabbit hole appears to be, and I am realizing that the issues are not nearly as cut and dry as I had previously thought they were. For this reason, this blog should be considered very much a work in progress. I cannot highlight that enough. Very much a work in progress. This is just a brain dump here, folks. If you care to join me on this quest for truth with an open mind, willing to challenge yourself as I have been challenging myself, here we go. The next section is called, In Whom Do We Place Our Trust? We've all grown up seeing the globe in classrooms. Generation X grew up with the Apollo space program and pics from NASA. For instance, for much of my younger years, I woke up every morning to wallpaper plastered on one of the walls in my room, depicting the full globe over the horizon of the moon. I just looked to see if I could find this wallpaper mural online, and apparently it is no longer available. It has been replaced by new artwork. Notice I said artwork. As far as I can tell, the original mural, which was sold, I guess, in the 70s through the 90s, has been taken out of circulation. I had that wallpaper put up on the wall in my parents' home sometime around early 80s, in the early 80s, is when we wallpapered that wall. Later in the 90s, I bought another one, the same mural, so that I could cut out the image of the Earth and use it for a set that I was building for a satellite broadcasting studio I used to run camera for in a weekly TV show. Today, the same mural is not available. It has been replaced with updated imagery of the blue marble. The original mural, however, used this pic of the Earth, had this picture right here. And you've all seen this picture circulating around the internet, I'm sure. Supposedly taken 12/7/72 by the astronauts of Apollo 17. The problem is, when you look into when this pic was allegedly taken, it was sometime about 15 hours or so into Apollo 17's flight en route to the moon. It was not taken from the moon's surface. So the mural that I had showing this Earth over the lunar horizon, the one I looked at for most of my early teenage years, into my 20s even, was a bold-faced lie. It was a composite made to look like the real deal. Unfortunately, I can't find any photos of my own, from my parents' house. I was looking through a bunch of old pictures to see if I had anything of it, but I couldn't find any. Maybe I'll take a picture next time I visit them up in New England. I think that wallpaper is still up My room was in the basement, and my mom's got a kind of a arts and craft area there now. But I seemed, last time I was there, I seem to remember that wallpaper is still up. So maybe I'll take a picture of it next time I visit them. But what I did find online are modified versions of that particular mural with the same moon foreground as mine, even including the above version of the Earth. But in this variant mural, the Earth is in a partial shadow and not the full expression of the blue marble as it was in my wallpaper mural. So I did find this one. This is somebody else's house and room where they had the same wallpaper. I had this exact same foreground and everything, but the Earth in my picture, the one that I had, was full like this. It wasn't partially in shadow. So that appears to be a modified artwork piece right there. Speaking of artwork, NASA has allegedly sent men to the moon more than a half dozen times. We supposedly have probes that have taken pictures of the outermost planets of our solar system. I believe at least one has allegedly left our solar system. Yet when you do a search for Earth from space, you find very few authentic pictures of our own planet. And the ones you do find are either totally fabricated, are made to represent something that is not true, like my wall mural, or are composites of high aerial photos combined with not so skillful Photoshop editing. Why? I mean, if we can allegedly get full shots of the massive gas giant Jupiter and wonderful pics of Saturn and its rings from a variety of angles, why are there so few full-sized and unaltered pics of our own world? To make matters worse, when fabricating the blue marble pics of our Earth, they can't even get the proportions of the continents or color of the water consistent from one rendering to another. And I've got two pictures right there taken from NASA's website, allegedly of our planet. Okay, these are supposedly authentic pictures of our planet. I see some major problems with these pictures. Looking at these two pictures, in the one on the left, you get the sense that America is massively huge on our globe. According to space.com, the image on the left is, quote, a blue marble image of the Earth taken from the VERS instrument aboard NASA's Earth observing satellite, Suomi NPP. This composite image uses a number of swaths of the Earth's surface taken on January 4th, 2012. And I got the source for that link if you want to check it out. You can go right to that link and advance to pick number 4. The NASA.gov website describes it the same way here, and I got the link to the NASA website that shows that same picture there, the one on the left. Yet according to the same website, the pic on the right is described this way. So on the same NASA website, it describes this picture right here as follows. Today, April 22nd, 2014, is Earth Day. And what better way to celebrate than taking a look at our home planet from space? NOAA's GOES East satellite captured this stunning view of the Americas on Earth Day, April 22nd, 2014 at 11:45 UTC, 7:45 AM EDT. The data from GOES East was made into an image by the NASA NOAA GOES project at NASA Goddard. And there's a source for where I got that right there. You can read it for yourself. At least they're being honest. And they're telling us that these are composite images that are being made by artists who are clueless when it comes to maintaining consistent proportions and colors. Then, to make matters worse, we have this alleged time-lapse video of our Earth spinning. Check this out. Time-lapse video, supposedly of our Earth spinning. Notice anything wrong with it? Keep watching. Notice anything wrong with it? There goes Africa. Africa's going by us here. Going all the way around. Okay. Now, the description for this video, it says NASA JPL's Jet Propulsion Labs description of the first frame from their photo journal. This color image of the Earth was obtained by Galileo at about 6:10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time on December 11th, 1990, when the spacecraft was about 1.3 million miles from the planet during the first of 2 Earth flybys on its way to Jupiter. The color composite used use images taken through the red, green, and violet filters. South America is near the center of the picture, and the white sunlit continent of Antarctica is below. Always got to make sure you get that picture of Antarctica, right? I mean, here you got Antarctica. See, we're proving it to you. Antarctica's a continent. See, you got to have to show that. We always got to take it so the picture shows Antarctica. Picturesque weather fronts are visible in the South Pacific, lower right. This is the first frame of the Galileo Earth Spin movie, a 500-frame time-lapse motion picture showing a 25-hour period of Earth's rotation and atmospheric dynamics. I didn't see any dynamics. Talking about weather systems, yeah, you got clouds there, but they're not moving. This is supposedly a time-lapse video of a 25-hour period of Earth's rotation, and yet none of the clouds are moving or morphing at all? Seriously? Go watch it again. I mean, really? I don't see a whole lot of dynamic cloud action going on, and still photography, right? Time lapse. Everything's maintaining its exact same shape. No morphing, no moving, no changing, no dissipation, no new clouds forming, nothing. I'm a 3D modeler. I've built numerous Earth globes for videos I've done in the past. The ones I did using $300 off-the-shelf software and a basic PC with an average processor and less than 8 gigabytes of RAM looked way better than this. And although I have never animated the clouds on my 3D models, it would not be that hard to do so. I mean, I could figure it out. The people at NASA are either inexperienced animators, lazy, or are laughing at us for believing they're garbage. It's exactly what it is, garbage. Here's the thing. You know, and if this was done in 1990, video graphics software and 3D animation software and all that kind of stuff wasn't ready for this kind of stuff like that, at least not on the consumer market. So, you know, back in 90, we might have bought it and not questioned it. But in 2015, yeah, I'm questioning it big time. Here's the thing. I did a ton of research before writing my book, Babylon Rising, The First Shall Be Last, which was first published in January of 2012. But in 2013, I released an updated and expanded version of it. In the newer edition, I wrote about 50 more pages, much of which dealt with the fraud that is NASA. In both editions, I also exposed many lies in which our government has been involved. By now, all of you should know the truth. You cannot trust politicians. Anyone who still thinks you can clearly has not been paying attention to reality. You may debate whether or not your votes actually matter, but the fact is all of our presidents are related not only to each other, but to one guy, folks, King John Lackland, the signer of the Magna Carta, who incidentally established the Lord Mayor Parade, which honors the Nephilim giants Gog and Magog. Click on that, takes you to the Lord Mayor Parade. You can learn all about that. It happens every year, and it honors the Nephilim giants Gog and Magog. They got sort of effigies created for the Lord Mayor Parade, showing these giants. Okay, so yeah, and just to drive the point home, here's a video I did for my Babylon Rising series regarding how your votes are completely and totally meaningless.
Does the government work for us or do we work for the government? What if Democrats and Republicans were two wings of the same bird of prey? Tonight, what if elections don't matter? What if elections were actually useful tools for social control? What if they just provided the populace with meaningless participation in a process that validates an establishment that never meaningfully changes? What if that establishment doesn't want and doesn't have the consent of the governed? What if the two-party system was actually a mechanism used to limit so-called public opinion?
One young girl traced them all back to one common ancestor.
They're all cousins and all grandsons of John Lackland.
It's the first family tree of its kind, pouring through more than 500,000 names for months. 12-year-old Bridge Ann D'Avignon discovered that all the U.S. presidents, except Martin Van Buren, are related to the former King of England, John Lackland Plantagenet, signer of the Magna Carta in 1215. She started with George Washington, But unlike other professional genealogists that only looked at the male family lines, Bridge Ann was able to link the presidents together using both male and female ancestry. Before this, historians had only been able to link 22 family trees.
In my book, there's a lot of genealogical research, going back, Dick's family, my family, these heroic and amazing tales of people who went west. But one of the things I discovered is that Dick and Barack Obama are 8th cousins. What? Is that an amazing thing? Yes, if you go back 8 generations, They have a common ancestor.
These spiritual beings have been ruling this planet through very specific bloodlines who long ago swore allegiance to these beings in exchange for wealth and power over the human race. In preparing the whole world for the ultimate spiritual deception these evil entities have planned. These bloodlines are literally able to be traced by genealogists all the way back to ancient Sumer and Babylonia. And these human familiars or pets of the demonic angels have worshipped Satan and his minions under many forms from the time of Sumer right up to our present day.
The Bush lineage has blood ties to a great number of former presidents. George Washington, Millard Fillmore, Franklin Pierce, Abraham Lincoln, Ulysses Grant, Rutherford Hayes, James Garfield, Grover Cleveland, Teddy Roosevelt, William Taft, Calvin Coolidge, Herbert Hoover, Franklin Roosevelt, Richard Nixon, and Gerald Ford. Michael Tessarion points out in his work that Bush is closely related to every European monarch on and off the throne, and has kinship with every member of Britain's royal family. Bush's family tree can be documented as far back as the early 15th century. He has a direct descent from Henry III and from Henry VIII's sister Mary Tudor. He is also descended from Charles II of England. And we also find that George W. Bush is a direct descendant of Godfrey the Bullion. Godfrey was the first king of Jerusalem after he recaptured it from the Saracens, which was the name for the Islamic faith during the Middle Ages. It is interesting to note that the current occupation of the United States in the Middle East was re-established by the same family, George Bush Sr. in 1991, and again by George Bush Jr. in 2003. George Bush Jr. is then found to be a cousin to both opposing candidates of his 2 terms in office, Al Gore and John Kerry. Democratic President Barack Obama also has blood ties with George W. Bush, as well as Gerald Ford, Lyndon Johnson, Harry Truman, James Madison, and the British Prime Minister Sir Winston Churchill.
Let me take you through this, branch by branch.
The 101st Airborne Division, Air Assault.
Vice President Dick Cheney, the man who's only a heartbeat away from the presidency, is actually a blood relation. He's President Bush's 9th cousin once removed. Cheney's cousin Barack Obama is also Bush's 11th cousin and the 9th cousin of Brad Pitt. But we're only just getting started. President Lincoln was President Bush's 7th cousin 5 times removed, and Bush shared more than just a ballot with John Kerry. That's right, they're 9th cousins twice removed. There's also royalty in the Bush bloodline. Princess Diana was Bush's 11th cousin twice removed. And then there's this bombshell. He's also related to Playboy founder Hugh Hefner, even Pocahontas, and Vlad the Impaler.
What if the whole purpose of the Democratic and Republican parties was not to expand voters' choices, but to limit them? What if the widely perceived differences between the two parties was just an illusion?
The Matrix is a system, Neo. That system is our enemy. When you're inside, you look around, what do you see? Businessmen, teachers, lawyers, carpenters, the very minds of the people we are trying to save. But until we do, these people are still a part of that system, and that makes them our enemy. You have to understand, most of these people are not ready to be unplugged. And many of them are so inert, so hopelessly dependent on the system, that they will fight to protect it. Are you listening to me, Neo? Or were you looking at the woman in the red dress? I was. Look again. Who is it?
What is the Matrix? Control. The Matrix is a computer-generated dream world, built to keep us under control in order to change a human being into this.
And of course, I go into a whole lot more detail in my book, Babylon Rising and the First Shall Be Last, as well as the DVD by the same title. And you can check that out at BabylonRisingBooks.com. At this point, I don't know how any sane human can still trust anything coming from our government, but that's just me. It's not just our government, though. I've been to over a dozen countries, and I've yet to see one country where the people will claim that their government is wonderful, godly, and trustworthy. So it appears to be an epidemic of corruption common to every nation on the earth. The military. As a third-generation Army guy myself, I can say that for the most part, our American soldiers are good people who have volunteered to serve this country and to do so as honorably as they can. I respect them a great deal. However, at the highest levels of all branches of our military, there are people who are not so honorable. In fact, there is mounting evidence that shows all sorts of sick and twisted people at that level who are into the occult. Ask any victim of satanic ritual abuse if you don't believe me. The military answers to men at the Pentagon, which is also quite occultic in many ways. Now, I am not going to paint a broad stroke and say everyone working there is a Luciferian. I wouldn't say that about the government either. But as with any bureaucracy, there are those in charge and the worker bees below who do the work delegated to them. When it comes to those in charge at the Pentagon, well, Donald Rumsfeld once said that they couldn't account for some $2.3 trillion of our money. Seriously? If they can lose that much money, why are we allowing ourselves to give them, to keep giving them our tax dollars? How responsible can they be? Note also that Rumsfeld made this announcement the day before a plane allegedly slammed into the budget analyst's office on September 11th, 2001. Note also that Rumsfeld made this announcement the day before, right? The day before. Convenient, huh? Furthermore, the heads of each branch of the military answer to the president, who, as we've stated before, is part of a bloodline of questionable and likely demonic origin. Now, you'll notice that I said that all of the presidents are related to King John Lackland and to each other. In the video you saw, it says all except for Martin Van Buren. I had somebody write to me and say that they found a link through the house of Plantagenet or Plantagen, whatever, Plantagenet or however you pronounce it, that there was in fact a link for Martin Van Buren as well. So whatever the case, if it's 43 or 44, I mean, really do the odds, right? I mean, come on. These guys, it's nepotism. Your votes don't matter. Presidents are not elected, they are selected. The evidence is becoming rather overwhelming at this point, at least in my opinion. Okay, it is a known fact that Project Paperclip Nazis were brought to this country, and many of them were responsible for the founding of NASA. They, along with other confirmed occultists like Jack Parsons, are the ones who built our space program, naming all their missions after pagan deities. Nearly all of the astronauts were Freemasons too. I mean, look at the picture of the NASA logo right there. Their logo has their name between what looks like the forked tongue of a serpent, for crying out loud. The footage they send us, whether as still or video imagery, is questionable at best and horribly fabricated at worst. Yet that's what most of us are trusting in as the #1 proof we are on the globe. And I'll get to that in a few minutes. You know, that's supposedly the #1 proof is the photographic evidence. And isn't it interesting that the first civilian, an intelligent teacher named Sharon Krista Corrigan McAuliffe, was unable to challenge any of the so-called evidence, the so-called science and evidence that the Earth is really round? According to the Wikipedia entry for her, it says Christo was an American teacher from Concord, New Hampshire, and was one of the 7 crew members killed in the Space Shuttle Challenger explosion. She received her bachelor's degree in education and history from Framingham State College in 1970, and also a master's in education supervision and administration from Bowie State University in 1978. She took a teaching position as a social studies teacher at Concord High School in New Hampshire in 1983. In 1985, she was selected from more than 11,000 applicants to participate in the NASA Teacher in Space project and was scheduled to become the first teacher in space. As a member of mission STS-51L, she was planning to conduct experiments and teach 2 lessons from Space Shuttle Challenger. On January 28, 1986, the shuttle broke apart 73 seconds after launch. After her death, schools and scholarships were named in her honor, and in 2004, she was posthumously awarded the Congressional Space Medal of Honor. Let's just imagine for a moment that the flat earthers are right and we are not on a globe. Could you have imagined her horror if she actually did get up into space and she turned around, looked out the window only to see the earth and noticed it wasn't round, as in a sphere? The one person who could have challenged the official story was blown up in the Challenger. Imagine the irony in that. Not only does NASA have a wonderful high-profile martyr for their cause now, but we lack any verification from a civilian of our alleged spherical Earth. Convenient. Pardon me if I remain highly skeptical of the whole thing. So here we have the perfect trio. A Luciferian government with a powerful military which has to answer to that government, with high-level occultists in various positions running each branch from a Pentagon, having access to trillions of dollars in unaccounted for budgets, which were authorized by none of us, tied together with an organization established and run by Nazis and Freemasons, all of which pump out information enforced by the scientific community, which consists largely of people who think they evolved from monkeys, resulting in a from goo to you by way of the zoo mentality, itself the result of a godless Big Bang and chance mutations over billions of years. Now, dear Bible-believing Christian, tell me again why we should be trusting anything these people are showing and teaching us as truth. I mean, seriously, help me out with that, please, because I, for one, cannot take anything they say or do or try and push on me as legitimate. Given their background, track record, and history, I'll assume they are guilty until proven innocent, especially NASA. Why? Consider the following a starting point. And I'm not going to play it here, but this is like an hour, I think it was about a 47-minute long video called A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Moon. Might want to check that out. All right. Now, having said that, please understand again, I am not painting a broad stroke over every single individual working in these institutions. I know there are many people working in the government, military, and space program. They are just the worker bees, though. Most of these people are just doing what they're told, believing they are doing the right thing for the right reasons, questioning nothing. My issue is not with them. It is with the people who are often many levels above them, the few who know the big picture and who are pulling the strings of everyone below them. The people who have the above top secret level security clearances and access to black budgets operating out of trillions of dollars of unaccounted for money. Those are the people I am referring to when I use words like occultists and Luciferians and such. It is, however, interesting how many, even in the lower levels, are Freemasons or members of any number of other Illuminist elite secret societies. These sorts of people I absolutely do not trust, nor should you. All our lives we've been fed the globe model. We've been shown video after video allegedly from the International Space Station or from satellites or from weather balloons or from high-altitude military spy planes, etc. The problem is it's almost always shot with a fisheye lens or through a curved glass cockpit window. Even civilians have sent fisheye lens cameras up in balloons. Well, this is what you end up with when you do that.
Say hi, everyone. Hi. Say hello. Say hello. Let's go to space. 4, 3, 2, 1.
Okay, are you seeing all that distortion right there? I'm going to back that up again. Pay attention. Look at what happens to the so-called curvature of the Earth or the horizon. Wow, well, look at that. How high are they off the ground right now? That's a pretty steep curve right there. And if you saw it went from convex to concave. Did you see that? Look at that. Huh. Kind of flat to me. I know that video is really shaky and spinning a lot, making it hard to watch. So I took some still frames for you to consider when it comes to the use of cameras with a fisheye lens and the problems you end up with as a result. And here's just 4 screen captures that I took from that video right there, close to the ground. I mean, this is just, you know, maybe a dozen or, you know, 20, 30 feet maybe above the Earth. Close to the ground, it appears we are on a very small globe. I mean, look at the curvature right there. Wow. Oops. I mean, we are on the inside rim of a big wheel. That's it. You know, we're on the inside of the rim. See, it's concave there. Oh, never mind. Whew. The Earth is round. See, I told you. Nice big curve. Oh, crap. It's flat after all. Don't! Stupid GoPro! See? See the problem with using lenses like that? When the whole issue of this flat Earth versus spherical globe came up, like many, I scoffed at it. Seriously? We're talking about this now in the 21st century? I mean, wasn't this all settled like 500 years ago? Please stop wasting my time. That was my attitude, as I am sure it may be yours as well. But I have found the following quote to be absolutely true. There is a principle which is a bar against all information, which is a proof against all argument, and which cannot fail to keep a man in everlasting ignorance. That principle is condemnation before investigation, a quote by Herbert Spencer. Others have simplified the quote to simply read, condemnation before investigation is the height of ignorance. Okay, so in order to not scale to the heights of ignorance by refusing to investigate before condemning, I decided to spend the time looking into the arguments used by both camps in this debate. When I did, I must confess, I quickly realized my hardcore faith in the globe was not really built on solid evidence. It was inconclusive, questionable, and/or unverifiable at best, and downright fabricated at worst. Thus, I found that belief in the globe is anything but a cut and dry case. But instead of relying on what men with expensive letters after their names who think they came from monkeys had to say, or basing my belief on photographic evidence that is either fabricated or shot with fisheye lenses, I decided to look for answers from the Creator himself, while taking a hard look at what others are trying to make me believe and what I've tried to make myself believe too.